clear. Now the cat is completely out of the bag. The Congress all along at the start of the session decided that they will not allow the GST bill to be passed, because once the GST bill is passed, the GDP of this country would increase by 1% to 2%, and every 1% increase in GDP results in 15 lakh new jobs. So the Congress decided that they will prevent the GST from being passed so that the economy does not improve, so that 15 lakh new jobs per person increase does not happen and the economy gets derailed. This is the sole intention that they have, and now that the session is about to end, the cat, I say, is completely out of the bag. We are still hoping against hope that they will catch hold of that cat and put it back in the bag in the next 2 days, but chances look dim considering the way, the arrogance with which Mrs. Sonia Gandhi and her son have behaved and instructed congressmen to disrupt the house and derail it completely.
But Mr. Mitra, the question I asked was why the BJP opposed it earlier. If you believe that the GST is going to help the economy, which by all accounts it will, why did the BJP oppose it earlier?
We wanted more discussion and a much better GST bill, which we have now brought, a far superior bill to what they had, and therefore we want it passed now. It is in principle the same bill that the Congress brought, but we have made further changes, fine-tuned it, accommodated the demands of the states, and I think this is a far superior bill to what was there earlier, but there is no reason for the Congress to object. We have improved upon their bill. Why are they objecting all of a sudden?
Okay, I'll take that to Dr. Singhvi in just a moment, but I'd like to get Mr. Rajesh in as well. Mr.
Half a second only.
Okay,
30
sure.
seconds.
Yeah.
30 seconds.
Yeah.
Only on the last point. I'm not repeating what I said. There is no answer for 7 years delay. And Mr. Ashim Dasgupta and Mr. Sushil Modi tried. Gujarat didn't come onto the line even then. The changes between the version we got when we left power and which they proposed when the new finance minister took over, the difference is nothing. They simply dusted that old one and started prosecuting it now. It is sheer opportunism. The other 7 changes we are suggesting are our changes further for improvement, not theirs.
Consuming states.
They can Mr. Chandan Mitra in fairness justify
why has Gujarat come on board?
7 long years. 7 long years. And one of the reasons quoted by no less than Dr. Manmohan Singh was that we are astonished that because Amit Shah is being prosecuted for cases, Gujarat is not cooperating. That's an official statement of Dr. Manmohan Singh, who is known for being over-moderate and using words of studied moderation.
Well, Chandan Mitra says they don't take him seriously, but I'd like to get MB Rajesh of the CPM in. Mr. Rajesh, how is the CPM looking at this?
But Gujarat is on board.
Okay, no, but Mr. Rajesh, how is your party looking at this entire sort of back and forth that is going on? Do you find it ironic that a party that actually, gave rise to this bill, which is the Congress, is today opposing it? The party that opposed it then today is fighting for it. And where does the CPM stand in the middle of this?
Yeah, we know that both Congress and BJP are on the same side of the so-called reform. Both of them, they claim that they are the better reformists. And both of them accuse each other that when they are out of power, they are opposed to reform. But we have been consistently opposing the so-called reforms for the last 25 years since 1991. And that too is in the interest of huge masses of our country, poor people, peasants and working class. So our opposition, consistent opposition to the so-called reform is well known. That I don't want to go into the details of that. Anyway, as far as the GST is concerned, our position is that we are not against the very concept of GST per se, but still we have some reservations to the current bill, and we have submitted a detailed dissent note to the select committee, joint select committee on GST, and we are particularly keen in ensuring the states' rights and fiscal federalism. And we have specifically demanded that the weighted voting rights of the centre should be brought down from 1/3 to 1/4, and that of the state should be increased from the current 1/3 to 3/4. So like that we have given some specific amendments, some specific proposals we have given, and we have given a dissent note to that effect.
All right. So Mr. Rajesh is pointing out, spelling out what the left dissent note is about. Yes, Mr. Mitra.
So, Nidhi, I just want to point out to Mr. Rajesh that after all, the Chief Minister's Committee was headed by the CPM Finance Minister of West Bengal, Dr. Asim Dasgupta. So they have been on board. And if one or two issues are there for which they have given notes of dissent, those can be argued on the floor of Parliament.
So you believe the left is playing politics as well and stalling growth, along with the Congress and the JDU?
Well, I don't think they are the main obstacle. Congress is the obstacle, not the left. It is the Congress which has, for absolutely extraneous reasons, decided to block this.
Okay.
I don't regard left as an obstructionist party, but the Congress is.
All right, so M.K. Venu, who has followed this story very closely over the last few years, you've actually written a piece today reminding the BJP of how it blocked the GST earlier. They say that this is a new and improved bill, but at the end of the day, if this bill doesn't go through, what are the consequences?
No change.
See, it is true that it will hurt economic growth, and it is also true that a good GST, by the way, the GST that the BJP, this government has come up with is not necessarily a good GST because the rate is very high. We are hearing about a starting rate of 25-27%, which does not necessarily, it is not enough of a reduction in the rate to give a boost to GDP. In fact, it has to be 18% or less for a real boost to economic growth to happen. Now, that's a technical issue. So it's not necessary that this government's bill is a big improvement on the UPS bill. But the point I want to make is there are striking parallels between what is happening now and what happened in 2013 November. Today, Mr. Jaitley rightly says that Ms. Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi are blocking, are the main people blocking the GST, whereas the Congress, generally the Congress is for it, leadership is for it. In 2013 November, when Mr. Modi had become the chief of the campaign committee and had also been anointed, Prime Minister candidate in the winter session, the BJP by and large was for it. I remember Mr. Jaitley and Ms. Sushma Swaraj was for it, but Mr. Modi intervened and said, no, we will oppose it. So it's actually a mirror image that I see of what is happening today and what happened in 2013, the winter session. That said, these are the political realities that we are facing, and this time around, Nidhi, it's a fact that Mr. Narendra Modi's lack of communication directly with the top leaders is also responsible, and especially his speech in Bihar where he gave Shivraj Chauhan a clean chit. Now he could have kept quiet. Why should he give Shivraj Chauhan a clean chit when the CBI is freshly investigating the Vyapam scam?
But those are interesting points that you raised, and I'll take this to Abhishek Singhvi first.
That provokes the opposition no end.
Okay, Mr. Mitra, I'll come to you in a second, but Abhishek Singhvi, do you believe that if there had been a line of communication open between the Congress top leadership or the opposition top leadership and the Prime Minister and the top BJP leadership, that would have made a difference on the floor of the House, especially when it comes to crucial bills like these?
Of course, and I put the blame squarely on the Prime Minister and his senior ministers. This is precisely the point which Sharad Yadav made very briefly but eloquently yesterday, and which I was adverting to on the Rajya Sabha floor. Nidhi, you see, if you reach out and talk, first of all, point number one, the Prime Minister tries to project that he is a king on the top of a hilltop, looking at his praja in the bottom of the valley. So he will not deal with anybody. Second, he will send different ministers, especially the parliamentary affairs minister, a very affable person, to meet people. Thirdly, there is no definitive commitment by them, not in the because they are not people who have the power to do the commitment. Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, for all his affability, cannot suggest that, look, we will consider whether Minister X can step down for 2 weeks, look into it, and then we will reconsider, or some variant. He can't even talk about it. So number four, what happens? He comes and says, look, we can discuss everything in the floor of the House. But if floor of the House was the answer, then where is Mr. Jaitley's not one but 10 quotations we have, Ms. Sushma Swaraj 2 or 3 quotations we have, that discussion and debate is not a substitute for action. And sometimes, when you are mulishly not taking action, discussion and debate must be obstructed as a legitimate form of parliamentary and hence democratic disruption. This is not me
realize
speaking.
Everything you're saying just now is exactly what Arun Jaitley said as leader of the opposition some years ago. That it's a legitimate form of protest. It's just the faces have changed.
With one difference. One difference. The UPA was hypersensitive, and where there was absolutely no FIR, no major problem, we did get people to step down. The Ashwani Kumars and the Pawan Bansals and the Shashi Tharoors are only 3 examples. There are many more.
No, so let me take this to Mr.
Minister
Mitra.
stepped down. He was shocked that nothing had happened by then.
No, so Mr. Mitra, on
now
this
the
point of communication.
This is complete hypocritical double standards.
No, so I want to ask Chandan Mitra on this point of communication and this breakdown of communication between the BJP top leadership and the opposition, Mr. Mitra, isn't that a cause of worry that there is no back channel at all? And therefore, how much responsibility does the government need to take for this reform failing to go through? And it doesn't look like it will at this rate in the next 2 days either.
Well, Mr. Singhvi has just now admittedly said that the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, Mr. Venkaiah Naidu, has been meeting, has been reaching out. Our other ministers have reached out. Mr. Jaitley has called meetings, which the Congress has not attended. They have not attended most of the meetings that were called to resolve the matter. And at a personal level, our senior leaders have been contacting Congress leaders. But then we know that the Congress Supremo and the Vice Supremo, they have decided. They decided before the session that they will not relent. And this question of resignation is actually frivolous, because when BJP demanded resignations in the last Lok Sabha, it was on proven grounds. It was against a CAG report. Subsequently, it was in the case of Mr. Ashwani Kumar when he was caught red-handed. Now, that was to stop corruption. We objected, we disrupted the House to stop corruption. The Congress is disrupting the House to disrupt the economy. There is a heaven and earth difference between the objectives of the two parties. So they simply cannot be compared.
Okay, Venu wants to come in before I come to MB Rajesh.
It's a bit self-defeating, as Chandan said. Congress had decided even before the session that they will not let this pass, and therefore the Prime Minister did not reach out directly to Sonia Gandhi. This is a bit self-defeating. He could still have tried. And
you think the onus is personally on the Prime Minister to have picked up the phone and
he could have, because he has been very non-communicative so
Why
far.
should the Prime Minister? Why should the Prime Minister? Other ministers were doing it on his behalf.
No, when you reach Chandan, when you reach such a point of no return, then these attempts are made normally in politics, aren't they?
No. So I just want to ask MB Rajesh, sir, as a parliamentarian,
but what do you when there's no response?
Who do you think the onus lies on, Mr. Rajesh, to reach out to all opposition parties? Do you also believe that the Prime Minister should have and could have done more?
Why not? The Prime Minister is the head of the cabinet. He is leading the cabinet, and he has the onus. The onus lies on the Prime Minister to reach out to the opposition and to ensure smooth functioning of the parliament. Since the other ministers have failed in reaching out to the opposition and facilitating a smooth functioning of parliament, the Prime Minister should have stepped in. What prevents him from stepping in and reaching out to the opposition? And number two, I think that there was no sincere efforts on the part of the government, and only half-hearted efforts were there to just create an impression that the government is trying to reach out to the opposition, government is communicating with the opposition. They were just trying to create an impression. There was no sincere effort on the part of the government.
You're saying they're only trying to create an impression, Mr. Mitra. You heard all the criticism.
And I mean, I think Mr. Rajesh would do well to talk to his leaders. They know that how much effort was made and how many times even CPM and other smaller parties were also talked to, consulted, and they did not relent. But then, as you see, so many others have relented. Mr. Mulayam Singh Yadav, the TMC and other parties have relented. They've said, okay, let's have a discussion. The Prime Minister agreed to come to the House and intervene in a debate on all these issues, on Mrs. Sushma Swaraj, on Vyapam, on Vasundhara Raje, although these are state subjects. But he said that if you have a discussion, I will come and I will intervene. But they did not allow. They did not allow a single day the houses to function. So the question of the Prime Minister coming and reaching out to the entire group of parliamentarians in the Rajya Sabha
so you have a good point.
Thwarted.
You have a good point. So Abhishek Singhvi, is there truth in what the BJP says that the Congress had made up its mind even before the session began that you would not let this House function? That you had made up your mind? Would it really have made a difference if Narendra Modi had reached out to Sonia Gandhi?
Of course it would have, because Narendra Modi reaching out means that some concrete solutions might have been discussed. You see, the problem is, we are not here for the sake of form. We are not here for the sake of formality. Come to the House, we'll discuss and then things will be hunky-dory. Let me give you an example today. In the lower house, at around 3:30 or 4, a discussion was proposed by a private BJP member on IPL. They insisted that the discussion should be on 193. In the lower house, things are different, so some of the parties, including the Congress, said if you must have a discussion, ideally you should not, but if you want to have a discussion, have it on an adjournment clause, not 193. What's the difference? In 193, you just discuss and walk away. In an adjournment clause, you can have a resolution, a decision, or a strictures, etc. Now, the whole point of this in the Rajya Sabha, where they don't have a majority, is they want to simply discuss, use it as a substitute and take no action. Because remember, each of the 4 cases we are raising, in fact all the 5 or 6 cases, land acquisition added to it, are raised for 2.5 months prior to the parliament sessions. The point you are forgetting, Nidhi. In these 2.5 months, they knew that there will be a complete